Hello everyone, my name is Ian Thomas. I'm based in UCD, University College Dublin, but I'm also working in the Environmental Protection Agency in Dublin, and we're part of the Diffuse Tools project, which I'm taking over as of 2 weeks ago from Eva Mockler. And basically this presentation will be split into two sections. So the first part is how SCIMAP has been used in other Irish studies, and then what we're planning to do with it in the Diffuse Tools project. My research is predominantly focused on phosphorus losses from agriculture. As you know, it's predominantly via surface runoff pathways. Of course, eutrophication must be controlled to meet WFD targets, and in Ireland there's the Government Foodwise 2025, which is a government initiative for sustainable intensification of agriculture, particularly dairy, so it's important to kind of get to grips on controlling diffuse pollution from such sectors. We focus on the nutrient transfer continuum, so you need a source, mobilisation, transport, and then how SCIMAP will come into play, the hydrological connectivity, and then delivery and impact. And looking at critical source areas, as you probably know, you really need large sources, high mobilisation risk and high transport risk and connectivity to coincide for that source nutrient to be delivered to the receptor. So past Irish research, I'll start with the Agricultural Catchments Programme. This is a programme run by Chagas. It has 6 study sites. It's been going since 2008. The study that I'll be talking about focused on 2 study sites: Grassland B, which is a predominantly poorly drained pasture catchment, and Arable A, which is a predominantly well-drained arable catchment. Both located in County Wexford, South East Ireland. Before we go into SCIMAP, just the power of digital elevation models and topographic indices, such as the Topographic Wetness Index and the Network Index, is a lot more powerful, obviously, than more traditional kind of tests such as watercourse proximity. This was using a 5-metre NextMap2 DEM. We do have LiDAR DEMs in the catchments programme, and we have run it for that. But just to give you an illustration of the power of DEMs. So the first kind of major study that used SCIMAP was by Wall et al. 2011. It essentially used the network index in the centre here, so red areas higher runoff risk, and they overlaid it with the soil P field scale. It's based on Morgan P index, which is the Irish soil P index system. So 4 is above agronomic optimum, 3 is agronomic optimum, and then 2 and 1 are below agronomic optimum. So essentially, you could map critical source areas by overlaying 2. And as you can see, in terms of the CSAs, this area here has both high soil P and high connected runoff propensity, whereas here, for example, you may have high connectivity but low soil P, so the actual CSAs, there aren't actually CSAs located in this area. Here is just a field averaged value of your network index. So this was the next kind of study was by Mairead Shaw et al. 2013, and she looked at the importance of open drainage ditch network on how it impacts the network index. So ditches alter natural topography, and how does this affect the model outputs? So she looked at these 2 catchments that I've mentioned, and the hypothesis was that the network index model, which accounts for the ditch network, is more accurate in depicting connected surface and near surface flows than the original unmodified network index model at different scales. So here's the 5-metre NextMap DM unmodified. As you can see the kind of valleys here where the stream network is. However, she mapped the actual open drainage ditch networks and burned them into the DEM. and then she ran the network index for both DEM versions to see what the differences were. So, yeah. Here's the original network index output, and here is the modified. So I was just focused on a couple of areas. So, for example, here, the pathway that goes through that field is actually now routed down here based on the burned drainage channel network. So as I focus in on here, another area here, you see here's the ditch network in blue, and in the unmodified version, the pathway it doesn't account for the ditch network, so it passes through and then ends up in this part of the stream, whereas if you burn the DEM, it then enters here. So this can affect where you're targeting your critical source area, your mitigation measures to tackle critical source areas, and the importance of having a hydrologically corrected DEM for when you're modelling at fine scales. So the average kind of accuracy of the model, because you did field observations, went from around 39 metres to 0 in this kind of area. And then for Grassland B, which has a very large ditch network, again, it really affects the model. But when you have a lot of fields with ditch networks surrounding each field boundary, it's although the accuracy increases, you're losing that downslope saturation potential because all the flow is being rerouted from upslope. So the issue is whether there should be an incorporation of kind of subsurface through flow that then the model doesn't currently account for. This is an extreme example of a study catchment where the drainage network is very dense, but that is an issue. And then she looked at kind of the actual changes in the network index values spatially for when you burn in the drainage network. So the in-channel values increase as you'd expect because the flow is being forced into those channels, and in a lot of locations upslope the actual values decrease. And then yes, I'll just pass through. So essentially having a hydrologically connected DM which has the drainage network burned in is important. Scales of drainage features need to be greater than or equal to the scale of the DM to avoid distorting the impact on more connectivity. So the actual scale of the DM that you're using is critical because you need to capture the features that are actually rerouting or diverting flow pathways. So moving on from the agricultural catchments programme, so there's other Irish research that's happened using SCIMAP. One example is Gombo et al. 2015, which looked at Loch Melvin, and essentially it was looking at targeting agri-environment schemes, payments at connected CSAs. Loch Melvin is a catchment that's a loch that's severely impacted by diffuse P sources from agriculture. So it basically used the network index and multiplied that raster with P export coefficients ranges that were applied to land uses. And apologies for the quality of the figures, but that's all I could get access to from the paper. And essentially, it linked CSAs with delivery of freshwater ecosystem services to spatially map the economic ecosystem services values across the catchment. So basically, it identified large areas where agri-environment schemes that would have been implemented would have no impact or little impact on ecosystem services because essentially they were just hydrologically disconnected areas, which is the whole kind of point of what SCIMAP is about, looking at targeting measures appropriately. And finally, from the Irish past Irish research, as Thompson et al. 2013, which looked at upper and lower Louth catchments and down catchment located here. And it's used the network index and land use weightings. Did how many iterations? 200,000 randomly assigned land use risk weightings to create kind of 200,000 permutations of risk, and then looked at the observed land use contributions to calibrate the model. And this was for predicting sediment critical source areas in headwater catchments. And essentially, he found that there needed to be a greater representation of processes controlling functional connectivity. So the structural connectivity that the network index provides was good, but also kind of looking at functional connectivity is important. So now on to the research project I'm involved in, the diffuse tools project. I started 2 weeks ago, so I haven't got any results, and we're going to be working with Sim on the SCIMAP and implementing it in Irish catchments. But essentially, it's a project that is developing the existing diffuse pollution models in Ireland, focusing on sediment, phosphorus, and pesticides. There's a bunch of collaborators and project partners, the names at the beginning slide, including University of Reading, Andrew Wade, Eugene Collins, Perek Melander from Chagas, and others. So it's quite a big project. Here are their details. And essentially, agricultural pollution is a big issue in Ireland. We want to improve the current models that the Environmental Protection Agency currently has. And essentially, they don't currently use digital elevation model information or topographic indices in their models, which I will show you now. So the Eva Mockler, who I took over from, has done some preliminary work using SCIMAP to improve the national models. So this is her kind of initial results for the Slaney and Surrey catchments. So this is in South East Ireland in Wexford. And so concentration, connectivity, concentration, and erosion risk maps for these catchments, and for the Surrey catchment as well. We've looked at kind of source. She's done work on source load apportionment, and predominantly it's pasture based. So there's the source of phosphorus loads. So using SCIMAP in agricultural catchments is where we really want to focus. There are the national model in Ireland that has pollution impact potential, or PIT maps for phosphate to surface water from diffuse agricultural sources. But as I said, it doesn't account for that topography and it doesn't use DM. So that's kind of where my work is focused. This is an example of SCIMAP risk mapping from the River Surrey. I think I don't know whether you made it or Eva, probably both. Probably
top right.
Yeah, you. Yeah. So this work is kind of ongoing, and we're going to be using these maps to kind of improve our national models. And I mean, the current models are available online in the EPA website, and so this is something we may look at in terms of developing these maps at a national scale and put it online. So thank you. These are acknowledgements. Any questions?